once again, valued shortwave listeners. It's time for another broadcast from Radio Timtron Worldwide, and you know it's been quite a while since I've done a live one. Yep, this broadcast is taking place March 17th in the year of our Lord, 2012. Yeah, I'm just clearing away some of the debris from the radio operating position here. We have here a fuse holder with a fuse in it, a JS for my ponytail, some dead NiCad batteries, a really tired AA battery. Well, it's like, what the hell do you do with all these batteries? Do not dispose in fire. Well, you know, I like living dangerously and tossing them into the fire, letting them go off with a bang, or hoping to hear them go off with a bang, and they usually don't. You know, that's how it is sometimes, you know. Well, one of the themes here of Radio Timtron Worldwide at times is to honor friends, to honor people that have passed us by. Some of you caught Ellen Wiener Worldwide last night, as you are probably all very aware, that those of you who knew Jay Smokestein, he passed away. And eventually that's where we all go, asses to asses, dust pecks to dust pecks, and what can I say? Well, I'm armed here with my glass of red stuff. And the 811 rig. This broadcast is not necessarily going to start out with music. It's to honor a friend of mine who passed away. I'm not speaking about Jay. That's a separate subject to be treated at another point in time. This is a friend of mine who I met in 1967 over ham radio. His voice was the figurehead of a very prominent 1980s pirate, which I'll divulge that information later. Just moving something around, I lost the monitor because I dropped that fuse holder on the KVM switch, which switches the monitor and the keyboard between two different computers. Well, it was 1967, Christmas Day. I just recently have been licensed as WA1H YLR in ham radio, and I had an old Philco AC/DC radio that had belonged to one of my aunts that I modified the tune circuits and got it to tune the 75 and 40 meter amateur bands, and you know it would pick up BCQ if BCQ were on back then, but it wasn't. And I had that up in my bedroom downstairs in a basement area. I set up my ham radio station. I started out in the bedroom, but I wanted room and space, and I wanted the bedroom just to be reserved for a few things besides my carcass. You know, TV set and the little 5-tube All-American 5 with Lochtel tubes Philco radio. Well, I was tuning around in the morning on 75, and I heard this voice that I didn't know the call letters, and I didn't recognize the voice. And I remember it very plainly to this day. Calling WA1H YLR. WA1H YLR. Calling WA1H YLR. This is WA1FEX. WA1FEX. And here it is. It's Christmas Day morning. I'm there in my pajamas. It was back before I discovered the intimacy with your sheets by not wearing anything at all, like sleeping or I always have. But back then, I was more tame and docile. Well, I asked myself, who the hell is this WA1FEX character? So I proceeded to get up, throw my bathrobe on, go downstairs, fire the gear up, and get on the radio, and I called him. Well, we had a very fun conversation, and we started interacting very well, and this guy was very, very quick in the comebacks and the humor. Well, come to find out, WA1FEX was a boot. In other words, a bootlegger. That's what they called unlicensed amateur radio stations. Bootleggers! You know, like from the days of Prohibition. You know. But in any case, he eventually upgraded from a boot to a genital class licensee under the call sign of WA1HOD. And he was known as the Hod Man. Yes, the Hod Man. And we were thick as thieves. We were on the radio all the time. And if somebody pissed us off, we'd really rain and piss on their parade. Yes, it was like Batman and Robin, the Timtron and the Hod Man. We were on the radio all the time and cut loose and, you know, have a good time. Well, I started to get to know him, and he lived in Sudbury, Massachusetts. Went over and visited with him, and yep, he was only, I think, 15 or 16 years old, and I worked on his Gonset G76 transceiver, which was an AM transceiver, rather rare piece. And I fixed the audio in it to where it sounded good. But I brought along a little parcel. Yup. The 811 rig. Yes. Fire up that 811 rig. Tune it for maximum smoke. And you know, he enjoyed getting high. Unbeknownst to his parents. Well, we continued to hang out together for years. In 1970, I moved out of Rockport, Massachusetts, affectionately known as Pork Rot, and moved in with 3 other guys into an apartment in Alston, Massachusetts. Yes, you might as well say it's part of Boston, but it isn't. You know, it's its own municipality and all that, but still mostly apartment buildings and businesses and stuff like that. Well, Chris had come in and visit me, and just before that time, I went to college for 3 months back when the Vietnam idiocracy was going on, and you know, Uncle Sap, if you weren't in college, he'd grab your ass and turn you into cannon fodder. Well, somehow or other we escaped that whole thing later on in life, but at that time I went into college for about 3 months. Too much of being distracted, so it was a liberal arts course, nothing to do with radio, electronics, broadcasting, any of that. I just had to have a place to be. So rather than the old man spend more money on it, I bailed out. I saw it as a total and utter waste. In the meantime, I was visiting Chris at his place, and he had mid-year exams. Went in to school with him. It was Lincoln Sudbury Regional High School, which, yeah, it was a public education thing, but it was very, very avant-garde and advanced and free-form school. And while wandering around, I met a young girl named Lisa, and we took to each other. Then she had a friend named Lynn. And Chris was carting my ass around because he had a driver's license and I didn't. And basically, she fixed Lynn and Chris up. So Chris, myself, Lynn, and Lisa spent a lot of time hanging out together and doing things up until the time when Chris and Lynn split up. Then Lisa dumped me, and I became very depressed at the time. That was back in 70. Well, advancing things with Chris. There's much water that had flowed under the dam, or under the bridge, or over the dam. Yeah, flowed over under the dam if the holding area has been undermined. Yep. Well, there's many, many, many tales as I have been looking back at things. It all started when I was getting ready to go on my trip. For those of you who follow this broadcast, realize that for about the last month and a half have all been glorious reruns of Radio Timtron Worldwide, and Firesign Theater has been occupying the second hour, so hopefully you've been enjoying that as well. I went out to New Mexico February 4th. I stayed at a friend of mine's in Freeport, Maine, which is near Portland, and he drove me to the airport because I didn't want to leave my car there, and God only knows when I'd return because it was a one-way shot. Because my wife has property out in New Mexico, and the place got